Hey, thank you for joining me for episode number 4 of Remember Tomorrow. I'm Paul Noyola, and I'm going to be sitting down with Miss Lori Walker today. We're going to talk about everything from NASA to making quilts. So here she is, Miss Lori Walker. Thanks for joining me today, Miss Lori. We got Miss Lori Walker here. It's good to have you in. Good
Thank
to talk
you.
to you. Are you originally from Jasper?
I am not. I was born in Danville, Arkansas. Small town, smaller than Jasper even.
Where's that in Arkansas?
Central West.
Central West.
South of Russellville, Arkansas.
Is that up around my Arkansas
Hot Springs.
geography is limited.
Do you know Hot Springs?
What about Mount Magazine?
Oh my gosh. Right.
Huh?
I was born at the foot of Mount Magazine.
Were you really?
Basically,
We
yes.
were up there a couple of years ago.
I remember.
And I
Shona.
think that was my first trip up there. And I had a
Oh.
great time. We stopped at Lake Ouachita
Yes.
and hung out. And it's just beautiful up there.
Yes, I was born in Danville, the small town at the foot of Mount Magazine, Havana. My parents were born there. My grandparents were born there. It's just really beautiful.
Yeah,
And
we were up in the park there at Mount Magazine.
the
and
lodge. Did you
we
make it
didn't
to the
stay.
lodge?
That was out of our budget. We were in a tent.
Oh, awesome.
That's
That's
our
even
budget.
better.
No, that's our style. That's how we like to
That's even
to
better.
go because
Yeah.
we travel with our dogs and
Right.
we like to get
Oh,
out
I
in the
love
woods.
it.
So we had to go down into one of those towns on the other side of.
Probably Paris on the other
I
side.
don't remember. I think
Yeah.
it was on the
Yeah.
other side because
Yeah.
we went north. I believe it was north and went
Yes.
down, and that was just the coolest,
Yeah.
like comfortable, sweetest little town
Yeah.
down there. But the weather was nice. You'd get up and you'd definitely feel the elevation up there, and just the views were really pretty.
My dad passed away recently, and we scattered his ashes on top of that mountain.
Oh,
So
wow.
that just happened. And
Yeah.
my grandpa worked on the highway that you drove on when it was built in, I don't even know what year, as part of the CCC,
What is
the Civilian Conservation Corps,
Okay.
or whatever that.
okay.
My grandpa ran the road graders and maintainers and
Wow.
helped build that road.
What year would that have been? You think?
Oh goodness, I really don't know. 40s.
Yeah. Can you imagine? Did they build the original? There
Yes,
had to be.
Well,
the roads, huh?
that people did live up there. My great grandmother lived on the mountain as a child with her family, and yes, there would have been a road. He put in the paved road, I guess. Yeah.
I can't imagine. I imagine there was been roads on those mountains for
Yeah.
all centuries, I guess, since the early settlers
right,
came.
right.
And had a horse and wagon up through there and stuff. But plowing a new road up that mountain, if nobody's ever been, it's just really winding and a lot of grade and things like that.
Right,
So
switchbacks.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, but it's beautiful up there.
Yeah.
So you were born right there.
Danville in Yale County. Yes.
Yeah. How long did you live there in Arkansas? And that's
Till I went to college. I went to Harding University.
So
in-
you did grade school, I
yes,
guess, all through there?
kindergarten through 12th grade in Danville.
And-
Yes.
And you went to college where?
At Harding University. It's in Searcy, Arkansas. It's a small Christian school.
Uh-huh.
And I got a degree in computer science at Harding
Yeah.
before the internet was invented.
So I was about to say, I went to SFA in the late 90s, and I was a computer science major.
Oh, really? I
Yeah.
did not know that.
Don't ask me if I finished either,
Oh,
because I didn't. But
well, I did. 1985 was when I graduated.
what I can't even imagine. I mean, I remember back in the late 90s what kind of stuff we were doing, and some of it um, some of it would be applicable today, but some of it's not even like if you tried to, let's see, some of the programming stuff we did in, man, I'm trying to think of some of those early languages that we did. I know we did like basic and was it Pascal?
Pascal. I had classes in Basic, Pascal, COBOL, Fortran, um, database. There was one DBase we called it, and back, I guess, when I studied computer science, there was not the internet. So we also just took all the math classes they had because there weren't a ton of computer classes at the time. So
Uh-huh.
I basically took every math class and then those languages, and we programmed and we, learned programming languages. It's interesting. I
What
loved
kind
it.
of computers were you working on back then?
Oh,
This was mid 80s. So like,
yes.
well, IBM was out, huh?
IB and personal computers were just coming out, and our lab was brand new. It
Mhm.
was really nice, and it was just cool that we all had our own little station, with the keyboard, and
There
that
was
was
nothing like that
right.
before. Yeah.
The class before me was the last class that worked with punch cards. That's how long ago, and
Okay.
I never learned how to use punch cards.
How did that work? How did punch cards work? I
I
remember
do not even know.
I
Yeah,
remember learning about those
yeah.
and hearing about them, but that sounds funny
Yeah,
because I sound
history,
like
ancient
I
history.
sound like kids today when they're like a world without mobile phones. What
Right,
punch
right,
cards.
right.
So y'all did those programming languages. What were I guess with just a computer science degree, you were just learning those programming languages and
Yes, and I could have programmed somewhere. I started interviewing, of course, my senior year, and my two choices to work with Texas Instruments was hiring in Dallas, a company called EDS.
Mhm.
Ross Perot, remember
Yeah, of
him?
course I remember Ross
Some
Perot.
people were going there. That was going to Chicago. I was not interested in moving.
Because technology companies weren't widespread then. There weren't a ton of technology
No,
companies. There was just a handful.
right,
And I
right.
imagine that when you got ready to move into the workforce out and go start your career, you had like a
A
handful of
handful.
places.
There was a handful. And then a friend of my parents had worked at NASA. My dad had been in the Air Force, and that man said you should send your resume application into NASA
So your dad was in the Air Force.
years ago. But
Yeah, not when you were
right, I was a
younger.
baby.
Yeah, so
Yes.
you weren't moving around and
No,
going to.
no, he was out by the time I was even a small child.
Okay.
But that connection is what got me to apply at Johnson Space Center.
Was that your first application out of college? Like
Well, Texas Instruments, EDS, and Johnson Space and NASA were
that's the three
my three. And my first offer, I still remember. Back then we checked our mailbox, a real mailbox
Your
at the post office.
tangible.
And I opened the mailbox, and there was a letter from Johnson Space Center. And to this day, I can still remember ripping that open. And
You
it
have
was,
that still?
I do have it in my scrapbook, yes.
Neat.
And I went screaming across campus.
So you were still living on
In
campus?
Searcy. Yes, I was in Searcy. And it was January of my senior year. So I had to offer all my whole spring semester. And that makes you have senioritis
Really?
really bad.
Yeah. So you get this letter in, and I guess where'd they want you at?
At Houston.
They wanted you in Houston.
And that was so unknown to me. I did not know what I was doing, but the rest is history.
So
as they
that's
say.
that's what brought you south.
Yes,
That's what brought
that's
you
why
to
I moved to
Texas.
Houston, was to Clear Lake area,
Yeah.
and then that starts another story. I came down actually to interview, and a friend of mine was teaching school in Houston, so
Uh-huh.
I called her and spent the night with her, and we went to church on Sunday morning the next day. And there was this cute fella sitting in Sunday school class,
Uh-huh.
and
Where at?
in Sharpstown Church of Christ in Houston.
Okay.
And I met him, hello. Went back to school, and he called me, and then we exchanged real letters. Back then, you wrote actual letters
Yeah.
to each other
The lost art.
at Lost Art. And by the time I moved in the summer to Houston, we basically started dating. And
I remember those days
yeah,
of writing letters, especially when you're younger and you got
we,
somebody you like or something. You would sit down and toil over this paper and wad up.
yes.
You'd
Oh,
have like a
yes.
pile of paper.
And scratch out and erase and then
I
start
don't
all
think people
over.
do that kind of stuff anymore.
I don't know. I don't think they do. I
Yeah.
don't. My kids hardly. Well, I shouldn't talk about my kids, but do they even check their mail? I don't know. Yeah, real letters. That's just something I wish we could still um, teach the young kids to do that. I don't
like
know.
I said, it's a
Yeah,
lost art.
yeah.
There's something special about that.
Yeah. Well, you open the mailbox and is it there? Oh, it's there. And then it's like, who's it from? Oh, and then it's like, what does it say? And you
And
rip it
and
open and
then the person that wrote the letter, they're sitting there waiting for you to
waiting to
get
hear
it,
back.
and they want
Yeah.
to hear back from you. And this is like probably a week or two before they hear back from you.
Right.
Not this instant
Right.
text message thing we've
No.
got today, huh?
And even the phones, you had to be home
Yeah.
and hear the phone ring. How did we even? I don't know how we even had boyfriends and girlfriends back then.
Things were
How did that work?
things were nicer in a lot of ways and a lot more simple. And that's I, I see me and Shona, we try to pull ourselves away from technology a little bit more these days and have I'm not as good at it as she is, but we try to just be phone free for a day or for an evening. Definitely nowadays, at meals in the evening when we do get to sit down and eat together,
Yes,
like the phones don't come to the kitchen table,
I get that
and
totally.
we're getting to where um, we've noticed that the last thing you do and the first thing you do in the day is look at your phone.
Right,
You go
right.
to sleep, you look at your phone, and then you wake up, you grab it, and you look at your phone. And one thing we're trying to do is to get the phone away from the nightstand.
I love that
So it's
thought.
kind of like you
Yes,
put it away
yes.
and you go. And again, I'm not good at it. Shona's a lot better
She's
at it than
better.
I am,
Yes,
but she's been reading a lot of some different books about just kind of detaching from the technology a little bit because what it's doing to our society,
yes, I
being able to
agree.
communicate with people and carry on conversations face to face, and just the compassion element of this wall between people. It's really interesting, and I need to sit down and read those books too. So maybe it'll put a little more insight into me and make me strive to detach a little bit more from it. Um, Otherwise, I don't know how I would function in my day to day business and
True.
life and as a creative. This tool here is so awesome to be able to take a photo or a video and just create like uh, as a kid, I was always a creative as far as just wanting to make videos and but
Right.
our camcorders were big, and
I
I was
remember
even making
those.
videos back then when I was a kid with big camcorders, and photography was a little more difficult because of the whole film thing. It wasn't you know as accessible
Right,
and easy,
right,
but as a creative tool, I love it. But I need to detach from it
right.
as far as the you know
Right. I
just
got a Apple Watch for Christmas,
okay.
and which I love, and I have decided on Sundays I don't wear it. And okay, does that even mean anything? Well, it because I'm not staring at it, I'm
Yeah.
not looking at it, I'm not check. Yes, I still check my phone, still have my phone laying around, but it was just one small thing I could do to not be totally appled out
Right.
every single day.
And pay a little bit more attention to the people around you, I
Yes,
guess. I think
yes.
that's one of the biggest things for us, for me and Shona,
Right.
is just kind of uh, not getting lost in that phone
Right,
and
and be with your
be with
human
your
that's
human.
sitting with you.
That's right.
Yes, yes.
So you met
Ted,
okay,
Teddy,
you met Teddy,
yes,
and
at church.
yeah, and this was
1985.
over in Houston. So y'all exchanged some
Yes.
letters.
We exchanged a few letters, of course, phone calls,
What was he
and
doing down that way?
he was a law school graduate, but he had a gas tank company. He installed gas tanks for gas stations.
Okay,
Walker Tank and Equipment was what he was actually doing. He had graduated law school the previous year, and it just worked out that about the time we married, we started dating in June. We got engaged. I had a ring that summer. Slightly embarrassing. In November, we got married, and he sold his business. That was about the time there was a gas. The oil industry went down in the 85, basically, and he decided to get out of the oil business, gas tank business, and start his law business. So he started his law practice. I was working at NASA. We lived in Clear Lake.
Wow.
And then we moved up into Bel Air, up into Houston after 6 months, and it was just really fast.
I didn't realize that Teddy, I'll call him
Yes,
Teddy also.
yeah.
Is he junior? Is he a junior?
He's Ted L.
Ted
His
L,
dad
so he's
is
not junior.
a different Ted, and his grandfather was a Ted. Lots of Teds in their family.
But
my oldest son, or his middle name is Ted.
I just feel funny calling him Teddy.
Everyone calls him that.
Okay.
That would be fine.
And I forgot now what I was going to ask you. Something about what year? What year was that again?
1985.
85.
When we married. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
And anyway,
I'll
we had a
remember
little
what I was going to
apartment.
ask you in a second.
We had a little apartment down.
I was going to ask you something. I totally forgot.
Something
that.
great, I'm sure. And then after 6 months, we moved up into Bel Air, and he had gone to Bel Air High School. His parents lived in Bel Air. We found a house in Bel Air, and
I realized they were over that way too.
They were, and they moved to Jasper in '91. His grandfather were from Newton.
Okay.
Back when, and so his parents wanted to return to their roots.
I got you.
And I remember telling one of my best friends, "Oh, my in-laws are moving to Jasper. Oh, will y'all move to Jasper?" I said, "Oh, we'll never move to Jasper.
We'll never go to that place."
I said those words, and within 5 years, we had moved to Jasper. In '96 is when we came here.
This episode of Remember Tomorrow is brought to you by Paradigm Yoga in Jasper, Texas. What? Yoga in Jasper. Yeah. Paradigm Yoga is located in Jasper, Texas. The studio is at 211 North Bowie Street in Jasper, next to Brent Moe's State Farm. They've got a wide range of classes. Never done yoga before? Doesn't matter. They have a friendly community of yogis that will help you get started. Nobody's going to judge you. Nobody's going to be tough on you. Just a wonderful group of people that practice yoga together. You don't need to be flexible. All you need is an open mind and a willing heart. Check out their schedule on the internet at paradigmyoga.com. That's PARADIGM yoga.com, or on Facebook at the Paradigm Yoga page. Just search for that and you should be able to find it. Wide variety of classes to suit you. Yoga sculpt, where you use a little resistance in the yoga flows. Chair-assisted yoga, for those that may be a little less mobile, and everything in between. So check out the schedule online, read up on what each class is about, or if you got a question, give Shona a call at 409-698-6335, or just read more online at the website at paradigmyoga.com.
Here.
So in your time, and you kind of skipped over something I was curious about and interested about, but the time you were down in Clear Lake at NASA, basically. Yes. Tell me about that experience. That seems pretty cool.
It was very cool. I, of course, from small town Arkansas, moved to Houston, but I loved Houston. When I first moved there, I got a map and studied the highways. Mm-hmm. Never had a problem. Could find my way around. For a big city, I loved Houston. And
it was so much different then, though, than it is now.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's obviously grown so much.
I don't vividly remember it from those years because I was young, but I do remember Houston in the late '80s probably, and I had aunts and I had family that lived there. I remember going. It was so different.
Yeah.
So different than that.
Well, I loved the Museum of Natural History. I just thought that was the greatest place in the world.
Yeah.
Their grocery stores were wonderful.
I need to get to the Museum of Natural History in Houston to check it out. The only one I've ever been to is the one in London, And
Oh,
have you been to that
I've
one?
been there. Yes, that's also awesome.
Yeah, I could spend
Yeah,
a lot of time
years.
in those places.
Yes.
But I do want to get over to the Houston.
It's really good. In the last few years, they've redone like a huge portion of it, and it's different than it even was when we lived there. And it's. I have some great nieces that come in and visit, and we always hit the museum when they come in for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, my kids, I took them
Yeah,
there.
thanks for reminding me about that.
Yeah. Oh, it's great.
I need
It's
to get
really
over there and
great.
check that out. I've seen photos of it online. People go.
Yeah. Well, it's good. Yeah.
Need to go check that out. So your time at NASA.
Pretty short, relatively speaking. I started in June of '85. I was there when the Challenger accident happened. When there would be a launch, I was in Building 30. I worked on the first floor in Building 30. Building 30's mission control, but I did not work in mission control. I was just in the building. But when there would be a launch, they had a closed circuit TV system, and we would go into this auditorium if people were interested. And of course, since I was a new employee, I would always go watch the launches. And one of my best friends, she was like, "Oh, I've got something to finish," and so I just went with a few other people, and we were standing in that auditorium watching live. And my heart's racing now, just remembering. And when it, of course, went up and then exploded, as we all know, I just was staring, and I looked up at the fellow that was standing next to me, and he just looked down. He was very tall. He looked down and said, "It exploded." And of course, it was horrible. I ran out to my friend and told her. I tried to call Teddy right then, and I was so nervous I couldn't even dial the phone. And so I redialed, and by then all the phones were jammed, so I couldn't even speak to him till a few hours went by. Another memory from that time, President Reagan came and spoke
At
at Johnson Space Center. And of course,
were you there for that?
Yes, I was in the huge crowd to see him, and it was outdoors. And the most emotional, I'm going to cry.
It's
The missing man formation, with the airplanes, the jets flew over, and they of course fly over, and it's so loud, and then the one goes straight up into the clouds, and the others continue, and it was just, of course, a horrible time for the NASA family and for the whole country.
I think that was 85.
Well, it was 86 probably, yes.
And I've forgotten. I was either somewhere between 3rd grade and 5th grade. I'd have to sit
And do
down
you
and do the math.
remember, like, do you?
Well, you talked about being in an auditorium. It's funny that you guys were all brought into an auditorium to watch this, but I mean, the Space Center, they launched in Florida, though.
Right, correct.
So it's not like it happened right there.
No, but that was the teacher. The teacher was on board. So the school
Sally
children.
Ride.
Krista McAuliffe
Who's Sally Ride?
She's also an
Was she a Challenger?
I don't believe
No?
she was.
Why did
one.
that
She's like one of the first women astronauts.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was
Krista McAuliffe was the teacher, and there was another woman. And
it's funny how those names.
Yes, her
just
name
stick in your head.
But all you little school children would have been watching that launch.
We were brought into the auditorium, probably like you guys were, with a big CRT TV that was this big, and the screen was probably this big in the middle,
right,
on one of those metal carts, and they wheeled it out across the stage and set it there and
plugged it
in, and they had all the kids in there, and then that we lost the Challenger, and
can't imagine how horrible for all the kids watching.
Yeah, I think everybody that was my age was probably in the same situation. I think I don't know how many space flights had happened, especially shuttle flights had happened before at the time.
A bunch, yeah.
Was it a bunch?
Yeah, a good amount. I don't know the number either, but yeah,
Because
they were pretty commonplace. As I was saying, like my friend didn't even go watch because it was just ordinary to have a shuttle launch.
But it was still, maybe it was the teacher thing.
Right, the teacher
it was still
aspect.
Cool enough to us, or the people at the school to assemble all the kids together.
Right,
And it
right.
might have been the teacher thing,
That's it.
and that's why
Yes,
they brought us all in.
I'm sure that's what it was. Yes.
Yeah, and I've got a family connection with that.
Oh,
Yeah. Um, my first cousin, Emma, she worked. She's
mhm.
retired. She's probably been retired. Heck, man, time gets away from me
Probably
now.
my age.
She might have retired about, well, this makes it easy. When they retired the shuttle program,
Yes, that's
she
when she
retired
retired. Right.
and she worked for the contractor USA, United Space Alliance, that
Yes.
built the shuttle.
Okay.
They are the actual contractor that built
The body of the space shuttle.
the
Wow.
space shuttle. So I remember it was cool having her working there because she worked in Houston also.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and her son, my second cousin, he works at Johnson now. Also, he's a IT system
Oh, cool. Yeah.
administrator
Yeah.
there now. Um, but Emma, it was neat growing up because I would get packages in the mail, and a lot of the stuff I still have. I still have it, but she would send me patches,
Right. Each mission had a patch
and
and
I've
a
got a
t-shirt, maybe.
Challenger. No, no, not a Challenger. STS 107. Um,
Patch from that.
the one that we lost over
Columbia.
Texas. I got a Columbia
Yes.
coin.
Yeah. Oh,
She sent me like the
wow.
challenge coins.
Yes.
I've
Yes.
still got that. But growing up, she would send me these packages with
Cool.
just NASA stuff. I've still got photos. I need to go dig them out. My mom's probably got all these in a chest at her
Yes.
home,
Yes.
but I had, like an 8x10
Of
with
each crew.
crew, and
Yes.
they might even be signed. I need to go
Oh,
look.
wow. That'd be awesome.
I need to go
Yeah.
look because I may have some that are signed by some of the flight crews and some astronauts and stuff. But and one thing I remember her sending me was a little strip of metal, and it was probably
Oh,
like an inch wide and
yeah.
like 3 inches long. And I don't even remember what kind of metal it was, but I think it was like it could have been titanium or something. But I
Yeah.
remember it flexed and
Oh,
it bent.
yeah.
And if you heated it or if you bent it, I can't remember, it would turn like a little rainbow color, like
Oh,
it
wow.
would change
Yeah.
colors, like
Yeah.
even at low temperature. So it was some kind of alloy or something that was used in the shuttle system
Right.
somewhere. I doubt it was the frame because I don't
The
know all this
skin,
stuff.
who
I'm
knows?
talking
Yeah.
about stuff I don't even know about.
Yeah.
But I remember I could bend it like that, and she sent it to me. She was like, "This was a piece of metal used in
Oh,
whatever."
cool.
I
Yeah.
don't know where that is. It may be all together with all this other stuff she
Yeah.
sent me over the years. But I remember hearing when the Challenger, when the when the Challenger was lost. I remember her saying that they locked down Johnson,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
and there was
Yeah.
no
That-
in or out. I think they
right.
kept her there for, I don't know. I'm gonna start making stuff up, but she couldn't leave basically, and I don't know if it was a day or hours or what.
I'm sure I left at the end of that day. I don't,
Yeah.
I did not have to spend the night there, but I do know the phones jammed up immediately, and it was
And
obviously
it might have been a
big
lot
deal.
different with her being in the actual shuttle program.
Right. Right.
They wanted all that personnel there to,
Right. Who knows?
figure
Yeah.
all that stuff out. I think they had to answer pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
And just, I think watching some documentaries and stuff, I think they kind of knew that problem was there. That O-ring problem
So sad. Right.
was there before they even launched. But I can't be sure.
Mhm.
They made some amazing documentaries.
Right.
I'm a nerd about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I like the whole.
Yeah.
What do you think about there not being them discontinuing that shuttle program?
I wish they could still have it out there. Obviously, they have the space station, and obviously they can get back and forth. It's kind of sad to me. I wish they could still.
They said that when the shuttle program ended, when they ended it,
Yes.
the knowledge and the technology that had advanced in that program,
Yes.
like the loss that we suffered
Right.
from us stopping that program was just
Yeah. I
detrimental.
feel like there are a lot more research could be done. They could be having new inventions.
Yeah.
A
And I'm
lot could be
totally
happening.
I'm
Yeah.
totally a free market guy. I love
Right.
private industry doing things. I think private industry is a lot more efficient and a lot more innovative. And the innovative thing's probably tough to measure, and because I mean you got a lot of smart people working in government in these different programs and stuff. So that one maybe not be as accurate. But I think private industry is a lot more innovative and efficient in what they do.
Well, they need to make money,
Yeah, exactly.
basically. And if it's not going to make money,
And to see what SpaceX is doing these days, and have you seen the footage of the booster rockets landing on the drone platforms when they come back down?
no, I have not seen that.
Lori, you need to check
I
that
need to
out.
check that out.
It's like it's not even, it doesn't even look real. Watching the video, you're gonna that's fake.
Oh,
There's no
wow.
way they're pulling that off. Because what they're doing is they've got the it's basically a rocket configuration, I guess, with a capsule on top.
Right.
The SpaceX, I don't know the name of it. I'm gonna sound stupid. It's like the Falcon 9 or something like that. I may be
Yeah.
talking about two different things.
Yeah.
Anyways, there's boosters
Yeah.
on this rocket, and then when they separate, they fall booster first. But these boosters come back down, and if this is the booster,
Yeah.
they stabilize and they land like,
Back to home base.
yeah.
Wow.
Because there again, it's private industry
Yeah.
being efficient.
They need to say,
Hey, we need to reuse this.
Right.
And for what it's worth, the NASA did that also with the shuttle program. I mean, those boosters were somewhat reusable, weren't they?
oh, that was not in my field. I really
Yeah,
don't.
because there were three. There was the two boosters on the side, and then the big orange
Right.
solid fuel or
Right.
liquid
Solid
that,
rocket booster
That was the liquid tank, I believe, that big orange thing. And some of that stuff wasn't reusable, and some of it was,
Right.
I think. But seeing that innovation and them sticking that landing like that,
Yeah.
and they didn't do it perfectly the first time,
Oh.
but I think it only took them a couple of times to
get it right.
To get it right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but check that out because that's really, it looks like something off of a cartoon. Remember Bugs Bunny when they'd go the Martian guy, and then they would land their spaceship and it would land just like this? Yeah, man, that could never happen. They're doing it. They're doing it now.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, that Challenger thing, seeing the innovation where they're at now in private industry is really cool to me. I like that, but it did make me sad to see the shuttle program.
I was watching the Challenger on closed circuit TV, not live. One day, I was in Houston with a friend and her small son and my small son heading to a soccer tournament, and we saw something blazing across the sky. And I called Teddy and I said, Teddy, there's some huge meteorite, something going over Houston. And that was the Columbia.
And that
So
was
I saw, that was 08, is that right?
2008.
And we didn't know until we stopped at the next gas station, and everyone was like, the shuttle just went over. And so it was just,
And nobody
so
really knew at the time that something
right.
was
Yeah.
wrong.
The ice chips, the ice, frozen ice hit the,
Yeah, but us
and
just
we
the
can-
public, I don't think we really,
No.
when we saw it, because just about everybody around here
in East
felt
Texas,
it
right?
or heard it.
Right. Yes, I've heard many people say they heard it go over, saw it, and so
So you saw it. You
I
actually saw it.
We and obviously didn't know what we were seeing.
you-
It was a huge ball of fire going over
Did
Houston.
you feel it?
We were in a car driving,
Yeah.
so we just could see it. And
I felt it.
oh wow,
They were where I was living. They were building a house across the street, and they just dried the house in. Let me back up a little bit. I had worked nights the night before. I was working at the police department. I worked nights the night before, and I got off like at
Right.
6 in the morning. I don't remember what time this happened, but I think it might have been my last shift on duty for that hitch. We
Right.
worked 4 on and 4 off. And so a lot of times when I would work a night shift and get off work, I would just, especially if I was going back on a day shift, that last night shift, I would just stay awake the whole day.
yeah.
and then go to
Push
sleep that
through,
night and just
right.
kind of get set back up to go to work. And I think that's what had happened. And I'd gotten home about 6, and I don't remember what time all this happened. You remember what
It
time
was
that
in the
happened?
morning,
It was in the
8 in the
morning.
morning, 9 in the morning,
Yeah.
something like we were on our way to a soccer game, so it was early-ish in the morning.
And I was sitting there, and I hear boom, boom, boom. It was
Oh,
like a pulsating,
wow. Wow.
bassy
Yeah,
vibration. Not only did you hear it, you felt
and
it.
you felt it. Oh,
So I got up, and it took me a few seconds to make my way outside 'cause something's not right. And I remember it was real foggy that morning. And
wow.
I stood outside, and I mentioned that house they were building across the
Mhm.
street because what it sounded like at first was that somebody had like some kind of saw or something
Right,
in this empty
yes.
shell of a house, and it was going woo, woo.
Reverberating,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's
So
initially
you're
what I
looking,
thought,
yeah.
and then it grew and grew because it took it like a minute or two to the
Oh,
sound to grow,
wow, wow.
and I could feel it, and I thought my second that was my
Mhm, mhm.
first thought was that it's something going on in this house. They're working on this house,
Yeah.
and then it grew to the point where I felt it. I thought, well, the Lord's coming back. No, I
Oh,
seriously thought
oh,
I thought it's
wow,
the end of the world. Something
wow.
had
It
happened,
was
you know.
that
It was that.
violent, yeah.
It was that like, um, it was that, um, just foreign.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
something like I'd never felt or heard, and it wasn't a hearing thing more than it was a feeling
Mhm,
thing. You felt that,
mhm.
and then it just died off, you know. And I went back inside and just kind of carried on
Yeah,
with my morning, and then all the news started
right.
breaking,
Mm.
and then I got a phone call, and they said, "Hey, I guess you saw what happened with the space shuttle. They're calling all local law enforcement in to secure these sites
Wow.
because they were finding debris all over this area."
Mhm.
So they called us in and they set us up on special teams. I could talk an hour on that whole
Oh,
experience,
yeah, I bet.
but they used law enforcement guys to because a lot of people were coming out to volunteer,
Mhm.
and we were setting up these search parties and walking
Right,
grids.
right.
So you had patterns and specific distances you walked with people, and you just walked through the woods. Some of the thickest woods out here in
Mm,
Sabine County, we trekked through them. And what they did, they didn't have enough, I guess, NASA people to
yeah,
go around
yeah.
with each search party, but they had enough local law enforcement to be a head of each party because
Right.
you had a lot of civilians. Then you had a law enforcement person assigned, and then you had I think it was a Texas or U.S. Forest Service person assigned, and that person had a GPS marker.
Right. Oh,
So your search team would walk these grids, and I was on this detail for weeks, and it would start, at the crack of
yeah.
dawn and end in the evening, and I'd hate to know how many miles I walked during
Oh,
that time,
wow, wow.
but our orders were to walk these grid patterns, and the GPS guy kind of kept us
Mhm.
on the right search path, and then the people searching, we would just walk, and it was just like
Mm.
step, look, and we walked, all day like that.
And did you find
I found several
I
things, and I
oh,
got to see
wow.
some pretty interesting things that I'll never forget. One of the things I saw little splatters of metal on the ground, everything from as
Oh,
small as if you took like
mm,
lead and heated it
wow.
and just dropped it onto the
Yeah,
ground and made a splatter that
melted.
big. We'd find that, and anything that you found, everybody would stop in your team, and then you would call over the GPS guy,
And he's marking it,
and the
yeah.
GPS guy would come over and he would flag it with a little flag. He would flag it, he would mark it with the GPS, and he would log it,
Mhm.
and they would record every little thing you found. So I remember somebody in the team found that little
Mm,
splatter of metal,
mm,
um,
yeah.
which I mean, you're out in the middle of nowhere. You know what that is. You
Right,
know it's a.
right.
And then one of the coolest things that I found, I don't remember if I personally found it. I mean, it was so many people on your search team. I mean,
Mhm.
the thing I'm about to explain to you, 5 people would have seen it at one time.
Oh, right.
But we're walking through a thick canopy of trees. I remember that. And I remember it being like hardwood trees or something. It wasn't
Mhm.
really pine trees because I remember a big canopy of
Mhm.
trees. And we came upon a piece of metal that was probably a piece of fuselage,
Oh,
the fuselage, and it was sticking out of the ground probably 1 foot by 1 foot. It was like a triangle sticking out of the ground.
wow. Wow.
And the part that was sticking out of the ground, I remember just being like sheared off metal,
Mm.
and it was still, you could still distinguish the color of the paint on it.
Wow.
And then where it went into the ground on the edge was the rounded off, riveted porthole of a window.
Oh my goodness.
And it was in
Wow.
the ground like that. And then you could, we stood around and kind
Mhm.
of, just took it in for a moment, everybody on our team. And you could look up through the tree canopy, and
Oh, like a tunnel.
it was a tunnel, and it was a
Oh,
thick tree canopy. I
yeah.
remember that. And you could look up through the tree canopy, and there were limbs broken off and everything where it came through the tree canopy
Wow.
and took limbs off of the tree, like
As it
big.
flew through.
And I
Yes.
think we got an update on that find later. And I think that piece of fuselage, they told us it was like several feet
Oh.
big, and it was just in the ground
Oh,
several feet, and only like the little tip was
was
sticking out.
sticking up.
But I
Wow.
will never forget
Seeing
that
that.
that porthole
Yeah. Oh.
from that
Who
fuselage.
who
And
looked yeah, which astronaut looked out that window?
yeah, and there was a lot of friends that I worked with, other law enforcement guys that were heading up, that were leading search teams that found um, some
Mm.
stuff that
Yeah.
that I'll never forget too.
Oh,
Um,
goodness.
it was a very big highlight in my life to be involved in that and be a
Mhm.
part of that
Yeah.
and see some of those things. Uh, have you ever been up to the museum in Hemp Hill?
I have not, and I should go look. I'm like you with the museum in Houston. I need to go look at that.
It's a
I
short
definitely
trip from
yeah.
Jasper.
I've seen the sign. I drive by there,
Go up there and check that
sometimes.
out, definitely,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you'll be amazed at what they've got in Hemp Hill.
Yeah.
I think they've got like some space suits and things like
Oh,
that, and just neat display.
yeah.
And
Well, when we were in the car, we were on the West Loop traveling north. So we were looking north. And as this huge ball goes over, I saw a square. Of course, I'm thinking it's a meteor.
Mhm.
I don't think it's man made. And I see for sure a square shape like peel back. And in my mind, I'm thinking, that's not possible.
Yeah.
I didn't see that. And so then when it was like, oh, it was spatial. So I saw a piece of the skin, a square,
Mm.
and it just peeled back and falls out in the debris
Yeah.
in flames. I guess it probably didn't land there, but it was a confusing thing to see. Like you were saying, when you were
Mhm.
hearing it, you were confused. What is that?
Yeah.
I'm staring at this ball going across the sky, thinking, what, and then and to learn that's what it was at the time it was just horrible. And then I'm thinking, I saw the Challenger. I've now seen Columbia. It's just kind of strange to have that experience.
Yeah. I remember them telling us to not touch anything.
Oh, yeah.
And with stuff like that, I mean, they were telling the general public that too,
Mm.
but they were telling us that on the search teams. The two main things they told us not to touch them for was um, the rocket fuel.
Mm.
It could have like a residue of the fuel
Mhm.
on the debris, and that was poisonous or something like that.
Could
And then
be.
they said there were some explosives.
Oh.
They didn't go into detail, and I think we were told not to talk about it. And I don't know if I should supposed to talk about it now. But
Don't.
there were some explosives,
Oh.
and it had to do with the explosive hatch or something like that. Anyways, there were some
Yeah.
explosives
I
on
don't.
the shuttle that performed a job, and they were
Right.
there for a
And
reason.
they were afraid that could be in the.
And they were afraid that those
Wow.
could still be live on the
Possible,
ground.
I
So
guess.
they
Yeah.
said those two things, don't touch the debris because there may be explosives, and there may be.
And I'm sure they didn't want people carting things away.
Yeah, and
Just
that was
for
my
private.
thought was how much of that they told us was because of that. They don't want
Yeah.
you to
Just
they don't want you
collect.
to
I'm
collect
going to
things.
collect
There
stuff.
were several people
He's-
prosecuted around here
Oh,
for getting
really?
stuff
I'm
and
not
trying to sell it.
surprised. Yeah.
And I think they ended up in federal court for
Wow.
But those dummies, I think they got stuff and then try to put it like on eBay or something. Space
Not good.
Shuttle Columbia parts. Yeah, that's not going to get
Oh,
flagged.
yeah. Yeah. Oh. Well,
But that was definitely a highlight for me
yeah. Oh,
in my
yeah.
career, being involved with that.
I'm gonna definitely stop by that
Go.
museum.
I
Yeah.
actually took Shona. It was when she first started coming to the US
Hmm.
and hanging out with me over here. It was like the 10th year anniversary.
Oh, wow.
Was
Yeah.
what year did this
Well,
happen?
oh eight, right? So last year
Was it oh no, cuz it
was
must
it?
not have been
Oh,
the
let's see, Steve, my son. Yeah. What year was that?
yeah, 2003.
Oh, three.
Oh
Time
three.
time
So it was
flies.
the
Yeah.
10-year anniversary
In 13.
in 13.
Okay,
Shona
that
had
makes
just kind of
sense.
started coming
Yeah.
and hanging out over here. And being the space nerd and technology nerd I am, they were having a little ceremony up there at the
Oh,
museum,
yeah.
and I said, "Come on, let's go check that out." And they've got a little auditorium, and they had some people from NASA coming at
Mm.
this ceremony, and it was a neat thing to go to. It was my first time, and I don't think I've been back since.
Yeah.
I need to go back through and just
Yeah.
drop a couple of dollars into their little hopper
Yeah. Into their till.
and check out their little thing. That's neat that's right there in Hippo, and they've got a little monument there right by the Dairy
Oh.
Queen that
Oh.
they've made
Wow.
too. Wow, there's been some
Yeah.
crazy things have happened around here
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
over the years. Okay, I won't bore you with space shuttle
Oh,
stuff
that's
anymore.
okay. That's okay. Well, I did. I went to school for 4 years. I only worked at NASA for 2, so I'm not sure.
But you were there during a pretty
Yeah,
amazing
important
time.
time. Yeah, saw President Reagan.
Uh-huh. What did you what was I guess my question, what would be the most memorable thing or impressionable thing that happened to you right there was probably the Challenger thing.
Definitely
Yeah.
that. Yes, and I thought, of course, as a young, new hire, just running around the site and checking out cool buildings,
Mhm.
and of course, we had security clearances, and we could go cool places and
Yeah.
check out the astronaut training areas, and
Whoa.
and that was fun.
Did you
Just
get
to,
into the Gravitron?
I did not get into it. Oh, I did see the building and get to walk through,
Yeah.
and that was cool. And then you just see astronauts passing by on the sidewalk, and
Really?
hello, and I spoke to an astronaut.
That's pretty neat.
And it was cool.
So you there were 2
Yeah.
years. Why did you
Yeah.
leave?
I started having my kids,
Yeah.
and
So family,
I was, because of course Teddy had, was a good provider. We were able to just live on his income, and I was able to stay at home. And when my oldest son was like 5 years old, at a little preschool class, he had to tell what his parents did, and he came home and said, "Why don't you work?" I said, "Well, because I'm taking care of
You
you."
should have said, I worked at NASA.
I did, yeah. Like, I'm taking care of you. That's my job. But
Yeah.
and I don't regret quitting. I obviously feel like I did important job raising my kids, but
Definitely.
sometimes I look back and think, what would have happened? I wouldn't have had 5 kids, I'm sure, if I'd have stayed at work.
Yeah.
So it's definitely worth it to stay at home.
So what year did you guys come back to Jasper?
We moved to Jasper July 31st,
What? You know the day?
1996 at 10 p.m. was when we
Whoa.
pulled into Jasper with our last few things.
Mhm.
And we had bought some acreage just south of town. And we actually moved here and lived in a single wide trailer house with 4 children. And it took us a year and a half to build our house. And we had our last child while living in the trailer house.
Yeah.
We were all piled up on top of each other, but it was awesome.
What's the age difference between your
10
youngest
years.
and oldest?
10 years. Yeah. David was not quite 10 when Luke was born. So I had 5 and 10 years.
Yeah.
And 4 boys and 1 girl.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, me and my little brother, we're 15 years apart.
Oh, wow.
And
Wow.
That age difference was just the best thing in the world to me.
Yeah.
And I would hope for him too,
Yeah.
to have that age difference,
Yeah.
to have I think 10 to 15 years is kind of cool for the youngest and oldest,
Yeah.
because you kind of,
Well, Luke got to experience high school before he was even in high school.
Yeah.
he knew what it was all about for sure by the time he got there. He even graduated a year early because he felt like he had already done all that.
Uh-huh. This episode of Remember Tomorrow is brought to you by Vective Media, providing professional video and photo services to the Lakes area for you or your business. You can see their portfolio or the detailed list of their services at their website at vective.com. That's VEKTIVE.com. So, through the years, one of your things you're doing now, you've got a little business.
I do. My grandmother's quilted. I've always been into quilts, and I've made a few over the years. Well, in about 2015, my daughter said, Mom, you should put your quilts on Etsy. And Etsy's an online marketplace. A lot of people have heard of it.
When did you start quilting?
Oh, I started quilting, in my 20s, but I would make one a year, if
Just
that many.
Random hobby.
Random hobby. I watched my grandma's quilt. I collected their quilts, as time went by. And so I've just always been interested in quilts. Yeah. And I made, several over the years. And then I kind of got interested in T-shirt quilts. It's just what
is that?
Well, you just take all your cool T-shirts from, say, high school or your soccer team or your travels, just a collection.
Because I pictured a shirt I would wear made out of little patches that.
Okay.
So it's the opposite way. It's a quilt made out of shirts, not a shirt made out of
quilts.
Okay.
Correct. A quilt it's like a scrapbook, and it's just, they're so fun to make.
So you're doing those now?
Yes. And so I'd made a few of those. I, like the baseball team here has a banquet. A few times I would donate one. I make them for our church kids that graduate. And then when my daughter suggested putting them on Etsy, I just thought, I don't know about that. And then I thought, why not?
You're kind of throwing, it's always scary to kind of throw your work out into the world, and people are you're like, somebody's going to criticize it, or somebody's going to.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this even worked. And so January of 2015, and it took 30 minutes. I just opened an Etsy shop. I had done research. I read a few sites that the ladies or whatever sold similar type quilts, I'd say. Turned it on, and on the third day, I got my first order, and it was from a lady in Denver, Colorado. And then from then on, it's been pretty regular, and I sell about 100 quilts a year. Whoa. And deliver them all over the United States. I sell 90% comes from my Etsy shop online, obviously, and then about 10% is just friends and family, people I know. Yeah. And I sew. And it's been a great thing to do since now my kids are gone, empty nest. Now I just sew quilts all the time.
That is so
and
neat.
I love it.
Yeah. So your T-shirt quilts is one of your products. What other kind of?
I mostly do T-shirt quilts. I also do, I call it a memory quilt. And say your grandpa has passed away and you have his closet full of his shirts that he wore, or overalls, or his uniforms from, say he was in the army or whatever. And I make memory quilts, and I make a good amount of those. So
that's your specialty. That's your niche, is doing these T-shirt quilts and memory quilts.
Yes, exactly. And I could make a normal, like I've made a few baby quilts here and there, but mostly it's the T-shirt quilts and then the memory quilts. And they turn out really good, and they're very personalized to each customer.
So with something like that, the workflow seems like it would be a little different, because you're not going to your textile providers and buying different stuff and assembling your quilts and then putting them in this marketplace. You're having to, you're basically advertising your service to these people and saying, hey, send me these things.
Yes, send me your shirts, and I will make this heirloom quilt out of them.
What does a average customer's quilt, the material that it takes to make that? Like, what does an average shipment coming to you look like?
I get about 20 T-shirts in a box. Okay. And it'll be and some boxes are heavier than others, obviously. And like some people may only have 12. I only have 12 shirts. Send them. I can do it. I have 50 shirts. Okay, that's a little too many back. And I encourage them to send 25 to 30 at the most. but I have made a couple of quilts out of 50 shirts, and they're huge.
Well, how neat.
And they turned out awesome.
Yeah, that's really neat.
But anyway, I've sold. I'm closing in on 450 quilts that I have made since 2015.
Wow.
I'm trying to hit 500 this year, so
Yeah.
we'll see if I make it.
So, if somebody wants to find you online,
I am Lori Lynn Quilts, LORILYNNE Quilts at Etsy.
okay.
I have a Facebook page. My friends can
It's the
just
same
text
thing,
me.
Lori
Yeah, same name,
Lynn
Lori.
Quilts
Etsy,
on
there's
Facebook?
no spaces in between. It's all one word. Facebook is their spaces.
What I can do is put some links in the show notes on here, and people can find you.
There's
Check it out.
lots and lots of pictures of my quilts on both Etsy page and my Facebook page.
Well, how neat.
I also have Instagram, but I'm not as active on Instagram, I guess.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I
and
mainly
my
post-
customers
I
are
mainly
happy.
post pictures of my puppies and what I'm eating on Instagram. So,
Yeah. I have 81, I think, 5-star reviews. I have 1 4-star review.
well, excellent.
So it keeps me humble.
Well, that's really neat. It's quite a niche you've got there.
Yeah.
Like,
I hit a sweet spot. I definitely
love
did.
that.
Yeah.
I love that. So yeah, we'll put the link to your Etsy
Okay,
store and your
thanks.
Facebook page in the show notes so people
Yeah.
can find you and see what you're doing, and pass that on to somebody that may want
Okay.
a memory or a T-shirt quilt made. Hey, you were worried about having enough to talk about. We've almost been going an hour here.
Oh, I'm not even halfway through.
See?
I'm kidding. Oh, this has been really fun.
Yeah, I appreciate you joining me today, Lori. And this is the new set. We're still in our infancy with the podcast. I've tried some different little setups with the sofas and chairs, and this is the first day at the table.
Oh, I like it. It's
I like the
comfortable.
table. I
Yeah.
think we're going to keep doing the table
Yeah.
here. But thanks for joining me in this new project that I'm wanting to do.
I'm excited to
in
hear
our
it.
community, and just kind of let everybody know who the other people that live in the community are with you, and people that I find interesting and inspiring. It's very inspiring to see you with your quilting business and do that, because me and Shona operate a lot like that. It's kind of like, you can take a passion and run with it.
Right.
And have
And be
fun
successful. Right.
while
Oh,
you're
and
being
have a lot of
successful.
fun. I love doing it. Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining me today, Lori. I
Okay.
appreciate it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.